and Democratic strategist Harlan Hill. Harlan, can you tell I'm not happy?
Oh, I can feel it. I can feel it. And I don't blame you. I mean, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a Republican, I see a very confused field right now. I see three candidates. Two seem to be true conservatives. The third is flip-flopped over and over. I think that your point on immigration was really interesting. I don't know how you can trust this guy as a conservative voter when, you know, he's basically the Hillary Clinton of immigration reform.
As a Democrat,
yeah,
you watched last night. I mean, we were together, and by the way, you did a great job.
Thanks so much.
A lot of my viewers sent in emails saying the fact that, hey, I think he can get that Harlan guy to go from the left to the right. So I'm going to try to do that. That being said, as a Democrat, when you see the results of last night, does that scare you? Are you afraid to run against Marco Rubio? Who are you afraid most of?
You know, if I am in the Hillary campaign, I am most concerned about Donald Trump. He has an unbelievable ability to liquidate a candidate, an opponent. Just look at what he did to Jeb Bush. It was just amazing. This is a guy that had basically unlimited resources. He's very articulate, polished. He had been a governor, and still, he was no match for Donald. I think when Donald sets his sights on Hillary, assuming he wins the nomination, she's never faced an opponent like that.
What say you, my friend?
Well, if I were in the Hillary campaign, I would be probably most worried about Rubio. And I think that after last night, Trump's chances of securing the nomination are significantly diminished. Last night was a serious blow.
Why do you say that?
Because Trump is a momentum candidate. He from the beginning, the central fact of Trump's candidacy has been his purported ability to win. And the only time that he's had the opportunity to show that he can win, last night, he didn't. He came in second. In fact, he came in closer to third than to first. That's a significant blow. And it means that we're no longer talking about, you know, quote-unquote inevitability. We're no longer talking about a front runner who's determined only by, you know, the Des Moines Register poll. We're looking at actual votes.
I'm going to push back on that a little bit, and you tell me if you agree or not. If you go back to June when he announced, or the day before he announced, he was considered a circus show. And since that time, he has been at the top. Now, this is the first time where he's actually fallen from the top spot. Do we not credit the fact that he went from circus show to number 2 in Iowa?
This idea that he's no longer competitive because he's lost some momentum is a media construct. This is one election. He lost by a few thousand votes. It's nuts. Mm-hmm. We need to wait and see what happens in New Hampshire. I would consider that his firewall. If he doesn't perform well there, then we should be having this conversation. But Iowa was not his to win. It was Cruz's to lose. And I think Trump's big mistake was that he didn't manage expectations going into last night.
So I come back to what you're saying here about Trump, and that it was a big blow to him. Talk about Rubio for a second. Do you think that momentum carries into New Hampshire? Is he going to be like this on Trump, or is he going to take over?
Well, that's a toss-up, but it's a significant achievement last night. I mean, if we're talking about candidates who overperformed, I mean, certainly Rubio, the idea of Marco-mentum that we heard rumors about over the last weekend before the caucus was real, it turns out.
But why? Why did Iowa embrace him?
Well, in part because, at least looking at the turnout, the evangelicals came out in enormous numbers, and they didn't go for Cruz wholly. They split largely between Cruz and Rubio to prevent Trump from taking first place. That's a significant, it seems telling to me that what you had was not simply massive turnout, unprecedented turnout, but turnout from largely mainstream conservatives voting against a candidate. That is something that you could probably take forward into the succeeding primary contests.
You know what matters? Winning. And I don't see Marco Rubio's path to victory.
You don't? Right? Why?
Well, he's not going to win in New Hampshire. I think that Trump's going to win there. I think that Trump will come out of New Hampshire with momentum. I think he goes into South Carolina, where he's currently leading the polls. And I don't see, Rubio's not performing exceptionally well in Florida or any state, that you would expect him to perform well in. So where is his firewall? Where is his path to victory? You cannot win the nomination by coming in second or third place indefinitely. We need to see a clear path to victory for Rubio, and I haven't heard anybody articulate it particularly well.
Do you see Jeb Bush, Chris Christie, Kasich dropping out, and all of that going to Rubio? That could give him the burst that you're talking about.
Probably not before New Hampshire, but certainly afterward. Look, if you're Jeb Bush or Chris Christie or John Kasich, you need to place third in New Hampshire. You need to. You don't have.
Well, they can't all place third, right?
Right.
So
Right.
at least two of them aren't going.
Right. So two of them are gone. It depends, a little bit who's left, but none of them have particularly strong paths going forward.
Does this all come down to South Carolina? I mean, even in the Hillary-Bernie situation, right? I mean, Bernie should come away. Should he not come away with New Hampshire?
He should.
Okay, so if he does, I mean, it really all comes down to South Carolina. So if it does come down to South Carolina for both parties, who do you see emerging and why?
Okay. I'm a South Carolina native, actually.
Are you really?
So, yeah, Charleston.
Okay.
So I actually think that a candidate like Trump plays particularly well there. Even in the affluent, traditionally liberal suburbs, just talking with family and friends, I've anecdotally started to put this together, and it makes sense with the polling that I'm seeing, even in a place like liberal Charleston. So I think that he does really well there, and I think that he takes that momentum into Super Tuesday as well. Hillary Clinton, she's going to do well there. She's going to perform well in South Carolina. If she had come out of last night with a definitive loss, I already think she lost by just being so close to a Democratic socialist from Vermont in his mid-70s. The fact that election was so close says a lot about her as a candidate. But I think that she comes out of South Carolina with a win, and I think that she'll win the nomination as a result. I think that she's got enough momentum, and I see a path to victory for her that's very, very clear, much more so than Sanders.
I got about 45 seconds. I want you to weigh in on that, and I also want you to tell me whether or not you think Trump missing the last debate is one of the reasons why he dropped.
Perhaps a little bit, but ultimately I don't think it was a deciding factor. I will agree with my colleague on the Democratic path. I think that's about how it's going to work out. I'm not so sure that South Carolina is where it all ends up. You have a situation in which you could have three Republican candidates who win the three different Republican candidates win the first three primaries: Cruz in Iowa, Trump in New Hampshire, and then Rubio in South Carolina, because you could have a situation where Rubio places a strong second in New Hampshire, and then Jeb drops out because Cruz potentially takes third, and then you have Trey Gowdy, Tim Scott, and Nikki Haley, the policymakers and conservative leaders in South Carolina who've endorsed Rubio. It's possible.
We'll be back talking about New Hampshire.